Hello, genealogists. This is Craig, and we begin our process of examining genealogical standards as found in the second edition revised of Genealogical Standards, which was produced by the Board for Certification of Genealogists. And this is where I caveat and say I do not represent the Board for the Certification of Genealogists. I am just an associate of the board. I'm not a trustee. I have never been a trustee. However, I believe firmly in the standards and what the Board for Certification of Genealogists means. You will hear this each time that we discuss a standard at the very beginning so that everybody is perfectly clear that you're not going to say, but Craig Scott said. All I'm going to give you is my opinion on the matter, and it's worth about squat. And we'll leave it at that. So today we're going to look for, out of course, genealogical standards, standard number 5, which is citation elements. And this is, in my mind, not maybe one of the most important standards, but one of the most useful standards. Because if you can remember the W's, you will be a happy camper. From the perspective of, by answering the W's, you will know what it is you have to use to create your citation, what it is you'll have to put down on your working papers, your notes, or whatever, in order to, in the future, be able to craft an appropriate citation, because you want to be able to have all the elements. So in reading standard number 5, and we're still dealing with standards for documentation. Standard number 5 is citation elements. Complete citations use a standard format to describe at least 4 facets of each cited source. Who, the person, agency, business, government, office, or religious body that authored, created, edited, produced, or was responsible for the source, or if identified, the source's informant. The what, which is the source's title or name. If it is untitled, a clear item-specific description. The when, the date the source was created, published, last modified, or accessed. In some cases, if the source is unpublished, the date of the event it reports. The where, if unpublished, the source's physical location. If a published book, CD-ROM, microfilm, or newspaper, its place of publication. If an online resource, a stable URL. Complete citations to information items documenting specific statements, facts, images, and conclusions. Reference note citations describe a 5th facet, wherein. And that's the specific location within the source where the information can be found. For example, page, image, or sequence number, or if the source is unpublished, its box number, folder, or collection name, or similar identifying information. See glossary for definitions of conclusion, image, informant, information, published source, and unpublished source. You want to be able to remember who, very important, who, what is it, when was it, where was it published, or where was it found in an online resource, a stable URL. There is no such thing as a stable URL in my mind, because things on the internet are so transient. So you want to make sure that you get sufficient information to allow you to possibly, if you're looking at it online, be able to go and find the original source so that you can reference the original source when you look at it instead of the online source. Now, some people will look at a NARA microfilm publication through a different viewer than going to the National Archives and looking at it and describe it as something other than what it is. So you want to be careful. In my mind, if I'm looking at a National Archives publication, and you can usually tell by looking at the first frames, that's what, in my mind, what you need to cite, because that's what the original microfilm is, not how its instantiation exists in some other website. But maybe that's just me. I'm always looking for that original source. And usually things that are on National Archives microfilm, you're not going to be able to get to the original source because it's on National Archives microfilm. That's the whole point of the microfilm, to protect the original sources. Now, recognize that there are I don't really know what to call them, but there are permanent things in a citation and there are transient things in a citation. For example, if you were to cite a specific book, the permanent part wouldn't include the page, but the wherein, the transient part, the variable part, that's where the wherein is, so you would include the page number. So when I sit down for before I touch a new source, I write on the top of my page, whether it be in Microsoft Word or whether it be on a piece of paper, I write www, 5 W's. And I try to fill those 5 W's in with the information. Now, sometimes I'm able to, for example, a family history microfilm or a NARA publication, I'm able to just say the publication number, and I can recreate everything I need from there based on the published number, and being able to access the microfilm catalog either on Family Search or the microfilm catalog at NARA or something like that. So sometimes you're able, as you become more comfortable in your research and you have familiarity with the kinds of records that you're dealing with, you may be able to create shortcuts that will allow you to quickly deal with things, knowing that you can get to them in the future because you have something that is very unique to that source. It has to be unique to that source or it doesn't count. This is why I normally don't describe printings where we're talking about a book. I describe copyright, not printings. Now, one of the things that concerns me in here, and I got in trouble because of this once, is in the whereins they talk about a sequence number if the source is unpublished, its box number, folder, or collection name or similar identifying information. I got burnt once because I identified records by their box number and account number, which would be consistent with this. And then after I wrote the book, it was called The Lost Pension, Settled Accounts of 6 April 1838. Within 3 months, they pulled all the records off the shelf and preserved them, thank goodness, flat filed them, and therefore the box numbers were not any good anymore. Now, had I included in my citations in the book for each individual record the year along with the box number and the account number, I would not have had to revise the book and redo it with the year, the account year. So in the initial book, it was box and account number. And in the revised book, it was year and account number. Now they can find the books. Now, after they flat filed the files, and so the box numbers didn't count anymore, they did have a crosswalk to new box numbers. So when you're going to order it, you might have to order it by box number. But what you really want to know is what year is it, what account number. So I'm just saying be careful in the use of things like box numbers, folders, those kind of things, because those things can change. They can move around as a function of archivists at work. So you always want to be able to create a citation that will allow others to easily find your material. It is so frustrating when you read something and you go, oh, I got to see the original of that. And you look at the footnote and it just says Record Group 217, Records of the Accounting Officers of the Department of Treasury. And you think to yourself, you scratch your head and you think, do they realize how many series there are in those? How many entry numbers? Which one did they look at? And I've got a couple of things in 217 I'm still looking for because they They tell me in the citation, but when I go and try to locate that citation, I can't find it. And if that happens, you haven't done a very good job. So this has been element 5, citation elements. And you always want to remember the www. You want to remember who, what, when, where, and wherein. Now, admittedly, since COVID, I don't remember those like I used to. So what I now do is I write them on a card. And I have my card with me, and it says who, what, when, where, wherein, so that I don't forget. Now, I'm sure I could take my paper and write on it, but the problem is can't take the paper into the archives reading room normally, but I can take a 3x5 card in with a hole punched in it, because I got that card from the archives itself. So I can take that single card in, and they'll stamp it on the back, that kind of stuff, if they want to. So this is Craig. This has been Genealogical Standards here at Just Genealogy. Standard number 5, citation elements. I think one of the most important ones out there of all 80 of them. It's on my list, top 10. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow. And tomorrow is Book Sunday. I love Book Sunday. Of course, I'm not even in town right now. I'm in Memphis, or nearby Memphis. See you tomorrow, where I still won't be in town, but I'll be coming back home from Memphis. Have a good one.